Whenever you're ready, Counselor.
Yes, Your Honor. Jack will move for the prosecution. Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, may it please the court. Whit Bowman took everyone for a ride. On August 30th, 2012, Whitney Bowman acted in complicity with Cameron Poole to steal from the Rock Their World amusement park. And because of these selfish actions, this man's life now hangs in the balance. Officer Winston Thomas, as of still today, is in a coma. A coma that nobody knows if he will ever awaken from. All because of the actions of Whit Bowman and Cameron Poole on August 30th, 2012. Now, we, the prosecution, are pursuing 3 counts against Whit Bowman here today. Theft by deception, robbery in the first degree against Haley Floyd, and robbery in the first degree against poor Officer Winston Thomas. Now let's talk to you a little bit about the first count, theft by deception. In order for the prosecution to show you that Ms. Whitney Bowman is guilty of theft by deception, we must show you that she acted in complicity with Cameron Poole or alone to create a false impression, to accomplish theft, and that amount of that theft has to be the amount of $500 or greater. And now what have we heard about this theft by deception here today? Well, members of the jury, when we're talking about theft by deception, for all intents and purposes, we're talking about the wristband scheme that you've heard about plenty of times throughout today's case. And let's talk to you a little bit about complicity. Now, when you retire to your jury room, you're going to be provided with a copy of the Midlands Penal Code. And in the Midlands Penal Code, it's going to outline for you what exactly it means for somebody to be guilty of complicity here in the state of Midlands. In order for somebody to be guilty of acting in complicity, they either have to be aiding or abetting this theft, or have a legal obligation to stop it and do nothing. Now, how much did Whit Bowman know about the wristband scheme? Well, you heard her take the stand today and tell you that she knew. She knew that Cameron Poole was stealing money from Rock Their World. She knew that he was skimming the top $15 off of every World Tour bracelet that he sold to customers in cash, taking a little bit off the top. And Mr. Longstreet told you that this amount was most certainly over $500 throughout the course of that summer. She knew that this was happening, and what did she do, members of the jury? She did nothing. She did absolutely nothing to stop this scheme. She didn't tell her superiors, she didn't tell her coworkers, she didn't tell anyone. In fact, what did she do? Well, we heard Ms. Rory Shelton take the stand and tell you that she heard Whit Bowman talking to Cameron Poole about this wristband scheme. She heard Ms. Bowman say, wow, my version of the World Tour bracelets are selling out very quickly. We should probably order some more. She said to Cameron, maybe you should offer a discount for cash customers so that we can sell more bracelets to cash customers and get more money off the top. She aided in this scheme. And furthermore, as an employee of Rock Their World, knowing that this stuff was happening, she had a legal obligation to tell somebody about it. She had a legal obligation to go to her superior and say, hey, something shady's happening with Cameron Poole. I don't want to get in trouble. I just wanted to let you know. Did she do that? No, she did not. She had a legal obligation and she did nothing. And by the Midlands Penal Code, that is theft by deception. Members of the jury, that is acting in complicity. And you must find her guilty of this count. Now, let's talk a little bit about the steeper counts that we're pursuing today. Robbery in the first degree, a felony here in the state of Midlands. Now, first we are pursuing robbery in the first degree against Mr. Haley Floyd. And what does it mean for somebody to be guilty of robbery in the first degree? We have to show you that Ms. Bowman acted alone or in complicity and threatened the use of force against Mr. Floyd with the intent to accomplish theft. Well, what evidence do we have of this? You heard Ms. Bowman take the stand and say, she never wanted anybody to be hurt. She doesn't know what happened. But what have you heard from other witnesses today, members of the jury? You heard Mr. Floyd say that he was held at knife point by Whit Bowman's knife. He recognized it as Whit Bowman's knife, but had no idea how Cameron had gotten Whit's knife. But we filled in that missing piece for you today with the testimony of Rory Shelton, who took the stand and told you that she saw Whit Bowman give Cameron Poole this knife. She saw Miss Bowman say, you might need this for a job. Teach Longstreet a lesson. She supplied Cameron Poole with that deadly weapon that he then used to threaten force against Mr. Floyd on August 30th, 2012. That, in the state of Midlands, is acting in complicity. She aided in this theft. She knew what was happening, and she let it happen. In fact, let's talk about that count against Officer Winston Thomas. To show you this, we must show you these same things, only that the use of force was threatened against Officer Thomas as opposed to Haley Floyd. Now, on August 30th, 2012, Whit Bowman knew what she was doing. She let Cameron Poole back into the amusement park after Mr. Longstreet had sent him home for the day. She allowed him into the park where this theft then occurred. And in fact, she tried to switch multiple times throughout the day with Miss Billy Isaacs so she could be running the ride when everything went down. She was working the Tunnel of Terror at the time of the incident. As Mr. Longstreet told you, she was never supposed to touch that ride again. He caught her running that ride in blackout mode, which employees are never supposed to do. And he said, never touch that ride again. I never want to see you working the Tunnel of Terror ride again. Which is exactly where she was when the incident happened. And before she took over this ride, she came to Billy multiple times throughout the day and said, hey, have you tried the blackout feature on this ride lately? Still working good? She knew what she was about to do. She had run the ride on that mode before. She didn't make a mistake. She pulled the blue lever instead of hitting the big red button on the ride. And in doing so, she caused Officer Winston Thomas to fall into a coma that he is yet to awake from. And why? So that she could let Cameron Poole escape from the ride. She knew what she was doing. She aided in this theft, and that in the state of Midlands is complicity. Members of the jury, I urge you to find Miss Whitney Bowman guilty of theft by deception, robbery one against Haley Floyd, and robbery one against Winston Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense?
Yes, Your Honor. Before I begin, Your Honor, permission to ask the opposing counsel to take down their photograph.
Yes, that will be granted.
May it please the court? Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury, a shot was fired. People panicked, and mistakes were made. Today you learn that on August 30th of 2012, Cameron Poole robbed Roger Wills. He took a knife, went up to the ticket booth operator, Haley Floyd, threatened him with that knife, and then ran away from the ticket booth. You learned that Cameron Poole was then being chased through the park by Officer Winston Thomas. During that chase, a shot was fired. You learned that people started panicking, and one of those people was Whitney Bowman, who was operating the Tunnel of Terror ride. And while this shot was fired, she made a simple mistake. Accidentally turned the ride blackout. By turning the ride into blackout mode, Officer Thomas was injured, and unfortunately, Cameron Poole escaped. But now the prosecution is here charging Miss Bowman with 3 separate counts: theft by deception, robbery in the first degree against Winston Thomas, and robbery in the first degree against Haley Floyd. Now, the only way that the prosecution can charge Miss Bowman with these crimes that she did not commit is if they prove that she was acting with complicity. Now, in the state of Midlands, there are 3 separate ways to prove complicity. 1, if they aided in the actual event. If Miss Bowman aided in Cameron Poole committing the robbery. 2, if she helped in planning of the robbery. Or 3, if she had a legal duty to prevent the robbery. Today you will learn that Miss Bowman was not acting with complicity. The prosecution must prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt all 3 of the counts that they have brought before you today. Now, reasonable doubt is the highest burden in our judicial system. And it means when you go back into deliberation, when you think about all of the evidence that occurred in trial today, if you have any doubts that are based on reason or common sense, then you must find Miss Bowman not guilty. Members of the jury, Miss Bowman, you will find, was not acting with complicity on August 30th of 2012. Well, first let's look at the first charge that they're bringing forth from Miss Bowman. Theft by deception. To prove theft by deception, they must prove that Miss Bowman, acting either alone or in complicity, aided in or robbed Roger World of cash valued at $500 or more while creating a false impression. Well, today you heard Mr. Longstreet take the stand, and he was telling you about some of the numbers and the financials of Roger World. Now, members of the jury, you heard one number come out of Mr. Longstreet's mouth. $35. The discrepancy between the actual and the predicted income for Roger World. Now, $35 is obviously not over $500 or more. Because of that, they cannot prove theft by deception. They've said on countless times that Cameron Poole was skimming money from the ticket booth from $15 from each sale. But they never told you how many sales he did this. They could never tell you how much Cameron Poole actually took from the ticket booth. And because they did not prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, they cannot charge Miss Bowman with theft by deception. There's simply not enough evidence. Now let's look at the second and third charges that they must prove. Robbery in the first degree. To prove this, they must prove that Whit Bowman, acting either alone or in complicity with Cameron Poole, engaged or threatened the use of physical force on Haley Floyd and Winston Thomas in an effort to rob Roger World. Now, throughout today's trial, it is clear Cameron Poole did commit robbery against Haley Floyd and Winston Thomas. Haley Floyd was threatened by a knife and Winston Thomas was injured by the Tunnel of Terror ride. But we must now ask ourselves, was Whit Bowman acting with complicity during this? Now, as I said before, there are 3 possible ways that they can prove complicity. And they must prove these beyond a reasonable doubt. But members of the jury, there is reasonable doubt in each one of these. Let's look at the first one. Was Whit Bowman aiding Cameron Poole in committing the robbery? Well, you learned today that there was a knife that was used to threaten Haley Floyd. But from every single witness, no one can tell you for 100% certainty that that knife that was used was in fact Miss Bowman's knife. Many witnesses said they thought it could be and that it was similar to Whit Bowman's knife, but no one can tell you 100% with 100% certainty that yes, that knife that was used by Cameron Poole was in fact Whit Bowman's knife. That's reasonable doubt. No one can tell you exactly how Whit Bowman, or how Cameron Poole received that knife. You heard today from Rory Shelton that Whit Bowman gave Cameron Poole a knife. But you also heard later on cross-examination that when she saw this, she was wearing a full costume, which included a headpiece. That headpiece had a screen on it, and therefore she had trouble seeing sometimes. She could not tell with 100% certainty that that was the exact same knife that she saw Whit Bowman give to Cameron Poole. That was the knife that was used when Cameron Poole threatened Haley Floyd. That's reasonable doubt. You also learned today that Cameron Poole escaped through the Tunnel of Terror ride. And the prosecution would like you to believe that Whit Bowman intentionally turned the ride into blackout mode in order for Cameron Poole to escape. Well, what do we hear today? A shot was fired. Miss Bowman made a simple mistake. We also heard from Billy Isaacs today, another ride operator, the ride operator who normally operates the Tunnel of Terror. She said on direct examination that it's very easy to make a mistake, especially when you're distracted. Gentlemen of the jury, the distraction would obviously be a gunshot being fired at you and at your ride. You heard today that the buttons were very close together for them to hit, that the emergency stop switch and the blackout switch were close together, and that it was very simple for that mistake to be made. Ms. Bowman told you herself she meant to put the ride into emergency mode and accidentally hit the wrong button, the button that was right next to it. Members of the jury, that's reasonable doubt. Now, the second way they could prove complicity is if that Ms. Bowman aided in the planning of the robbery. You heard today that Ms. Bowman had no idea that Cameron Poole was going to rob Rock World. She explained why she let Cameron Poole back into the park on August 30th of 2012. She told you how that she thought he was going to come in, take the bracelets, and leave the park. She told you that on that day, that is all that she had planned for Cameron Poole to do. That later on in the day, when she saw him again through the park running towards her ride, she was surprised to see him there because she had thought that he had left. Miss Bowman did not know that Cameron Poole was going to rob Rock World, so how was she supposed to help him plan the robbery? You also learned today from Charlie Kaminsky, a limo driver who took Cameron Poole from the store to the Midlands Marina after the robbery. You learned that she overheard a conversation between Cameron Poole and Whit Bowman. And Whit Bowman said to Cameron Poole, "I didn't want anything like this to happen." Finally, the third way that it can prove complicity is if Ms. Bowman had a legal duty to prevent the robbery. And again, Ms. Bowman did not know this robbery was going to take place, therefore could not prevent it. Members of the jury, a shot was fired on August 30th. People panicked, and a mistake was made. Find Ms. Bowman not guilty of robbery in the first degree against Haley Floyd and Winston Thomas, and not guilty of theft by deception, because she was not acting with complicity. Thank you.
Ronald?
Yes, Your Honor. Now, opposing counsel just came forward and told you that a shot was fired. A gunshot rang out. And mistakes were made because of that. Because people panicked. She heard a gunshot. She made a mistake. But when Ms. Bowman took the stand, she told you that when she talked to Officer Kimball after the incident, she didn't even hear that gunshot. She told him she never heard that shot. And what else did she tell him? She told him that she had no idea who Cameron Poole even was. She wasn't that close with him. She only knew him from that summer. And then she told him that she made a mistake. She's never ran that ride in blackout mode before. She doesn't know what blackout mode is. When we know that that isn't true, as we've heard from countless witnesses today in court, Ms. Bowman lied to Officer Kimball when she was questioned after the incident. And why? Because she's guilty, members of the jury. Because she knew what she was doing. She aided Cameron Poole and acted in complicity to commit the crimes on August 30th, 2012, and throughout that entire summer. Whit Bowman took everyone for a ride. Don't let her take you for a ride, too. Find her guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, if you guys just want to give us a few minutes to complete our ballots, you can stay in here, you can step outside, whatever you want, and then we'll let you know when we're all done.
Good job, thank you.